Welcome to Keep Your Thrive Alive. I'm Mark Mulligan, and this is a space where I share inspiration, tips and ideas to boost your mood, your energy and your well-being. Hybrid working is here to stay, but how can we manage it for ourselves, our teams and our organisations so that it works holistically? Today we're going to explore the idea of healthy hybrid working with Della Judd. I've worked with Della for over 7 years. We were first introduced when I was her coach and she was newly promoted to director at Deloitte. Della has 25 years of senior corporate leadership experience and now runs her own business. She's an advocate for human leadership, has campaigned for flexible working and how we can all make hybrid working work for us. Della, you're very welcome. Can we start with you telling us just why hybrid working is so important for you personally?
Sure. Well, first of all, I needed flexible working when my kids were younger, and also I was suffering with chronic migraines, so I needed that element of flexibility in my day. Luckily, I had a boss at the time who allowed me to be flexible, and I could see what the difference that made for me. And then later, I introduced the first hybrid remote working team at Deloitte. And I started to see really great results when we did that. I saw that people were suffering less with stress or anxiety. People who'd had depression were suddenly able to work because they were working in a way that worked for them. They weren't having to worry about the commute, and they weren't worrying about parking and all of those kind of things.
So what about for organisations? You know, how does it work for organisations?
Well, I'm campaigning now for hybrid working and flexible working so that it can be done in a really constructive way so that organisations can get the best out of their people, engage with people on a human level. Ultimately, if you've got happy people, then it's good for them, but it's also good for business.
Fantastic. And how have things changed since the pandemic?
Well, I think what the pandemic has shown us that actually working from home has worked. And it can be just as effective for some, if not more effective than when we were all in the office. And a recent survey has shown that 85% of people are now expecting a hybrid type solution for when they return back to the office. And the younger population are also saying that that's what they want as well. So another survey showed that 48% of people who are kind of digitally savvy would expect a hybrid working solution on their return.
So obviously there's been a change in terms of people's preferences, but what impact does that have in terms of team performance?
Well, I think hybrid working is here to stay, and there's going to be no doubt that it's going to be difficult for teams. When we were all either in the office or all at home, I think we could work out our ways of working and we could kind of have rules and procedures of how that was going to work. And now with this kind of mixed hybrid way of working for teams, it's going to be quite challenging. I might be leading a team, but they might not be all in the office. So I'm going to have to work out how I communicate with them, how I collaborate with them, how I connect, where they are. So it's going to need for people to really start to work through how they want to work, and that's going to be complicated. It's going to be like a really complex web for people to try and navigate.
And what are the implications for personal well-being and levels of stress?
Well, I think it can be stressful to try and organise this alone, and I think it can be very stressful for individuals to navigate as well. It's like a complex web. Before we had really straight lines of communications, you're either in the office or all at home, and now we're going to be in different places at different times, and it's probably not going to be the same every day.
Why is it so important for companies to develop a healthy hybrid culture?
Well, ultimately, happy and engaged employees are much more productive. They take fewer sick days. So by implementing this well or badly can have a real impact on how the company works. It can affect your brand, it can affect your reputation, it can affect whether you can hire people, whether people are leaving or not. So making sure that there is that investment in a healthy hybrid culture can make a real difference to profitability.
So obviously there are strong reasons why it's important for individuals, teams and organisations. But what is hybrid working? How do you define it? Because I must admit from my own perspective, I thought that post-pandemic that there would be a general consensus about what it was and how people would implement it. How would you define it?
Well, the Office of National Statistics defines it as where employees can work in a blended way, whether in the office or at home. But actually, every sector is different, every company is different. Even within companies, every team is going to be different. So that's the challenge, that's the really difficult part, because there are no set rules and no set ways of working. So it means every company and every individual and even every department is having to work this all out for themselves right now.
So I've heard that different companies are doing quite different things.
Yeah, there's quite a variation out there, and some announcements are coming out all the time about what different companies are doing. Apple have said, for example, that they want people to come in for a fixed number of days per week. Google have said that people can work anywhere. I think Salesforce said that the 9 to 5 was dead. And then you've got Goldman Sachs who said that remote working was an aberration that needed to be stopped as soon as possible. So quite a range.
Wow, it's such a complex topic, isn't it? And we've got a limited amount of time together today. So what is it that we'll be able to share with people that will be useful for them and practical so that they could develop a more healthy hybrid culture at work?
Well, I've developed a coaching model called the 4Ws, and it's to help with having a structured conversation where we can explore what might be going on for us.
Great. So can you take us through it? What's the first W?
So the first W is what. What is it that I want? And this could be that you want to work 2 days a week in the office or 3 days a week in the office, for example. So identifying what.
So the first W is what do I want? What's the next W?
Second W is about going a little bit deeper and trying to explore why. Why do I want to be working in that way? And it might be that I want to work 2 days a week in the office so that on the 3 other days I can perhaps be going to the gym or doing something else for my health, reducing the commute or so on. So this is about really exploring why.
Wow, that's really important, isn't it? To get under the surface to try and understand what's really driving somebody's decision, what's important to them.
Yeah.
What's the third W?
So the third one is, what am I worried about? So it's all very well saying that what we want is this and we might know why, but there might be some other things that would worry us about doing that. So we might want to work 2 days a week. We know why we want to do it, but actually there might be some worries that if I'm not in the office all of the time, I might be overlooked or I might miss out on networking opportunities that would help me get promoted, for example. So it can be good to explore what we're worried about so that we can then take some action.
So you're looking at the other side of the coin, what their concerns might be, to have a more sort of holistic conversation. And what might be the final W?
So the final W is then about working out what action we might want to take. I think there's a bit of an assumption that organisations are perhaps going to know everything there is to know about hybrid working and they're going to kind of tell us what to do. But actually hybrid is so new. Companies haven't got policies, they haven't got rules in place, they don't potentially know. So in this instance, knowing what action you want to take can be quite empowering, because you can then maybe book a meeting with your manager and say that these are my worries. I'm worrying about how I might be overlooked if I'm not in the office, and you can start to have a conversation. It may well be that it's not something that's even occurred to them at all. So this is about having a positive and productive conversation so that you can move forward to get what you want out of the way you're working.
So this model is obviously very good for individuals to work out what's really important to them and to prepare for constructive conversation, but can it also be used by leaders?
Well, I think so, yes. I think it can help a leader to have a model that can allow them to have a positive and productive conversation with a team member. So they could be asking of the team member what it is that they would like and how they would like to be working. They can then also be exploring why. Why is that helpful to them? Why is it that they would like to work that way? They can also be asking why that would be useful for the team and for the business. They could then explore the worry and collectively have a conversation about what might be worrying the individual. And again, it starts to air some of the more personal or detailed challenges that might be coming up. And finally, they could then be working out what can we both do together? So there's 2 W's there, the what can we do and how can we make it work together for the team, the business and the individual.
So I really like that last piece. So it's really working together in a more collaborative way to find a solution that works for everybody. And I guess that conversation is about, digging below the surface, understanding what's really important to people, what their concerns are, connecting on a more human level, and then coming to a mutually beneficial solution.
Absolutely, and having a two-way, productive and positive conversation that just starts to have the conversation rolling can be really helpful.
Thank you, Della. It's been hugely useful to reflect on how we can develop a healthy hybrid way of working that benefits ourselves, our organisations, and our teams. So that you can put this into practice, we've created a download with the 4 W's, which we hope will help you to put some of this thinking into practice. If you're interested in exploring how to build a healthy hybrid culture in your organisation, then get in touch using the link at the bottom of this page. Della has developed an engaging and interactive 60-minute Thrive-Webinar which builds on the ideas of this video and coaches colleagues how to have a constructive hybrid working conversation. Now I'd love to hear from you. Please leave your comments in the section below. What did you find most interesting about this video? Which of the 4 W's was most useful for you to reflect on? How do you think this approach could help you or your team or your organisation? And finally, what action are you going to take? I look forward to seeing you next month, and in the meantime, be well and thrive.